The economy is in trouble, and the climate crisis demands an urgent response. Can we find and redistribute the huge spending power of cities towards supporting locally owned businesses and jobs? How can spending decisions support local wealth building and make sure that everyone has enough and we don't go over the planetary boundaries? Donor economics and community wealth building might be the answer to this dilemma.
Think of donor economics as a compass for a 21st century that thrives. The goal is to meet the needs of all people within the means of the living planet. We center that vision and then ask what kind of economy, what kind of government services, what kind of businesses, what kind of community organization will be in service of achieving that. When we start with donor economics, we center becoming regenerative by design, recognizing we have run down the living world. We must restore and repair and rewild and refurbish and reuse everything that is part of our local lives. We also recognize we've inherited divisive systems that capture value and opportunity in the hands of a few. They must become far more distributive by design. So let's change the goal of what the economy is for. Think of a donut, the kind with a hole in the middle, right? We want to leave no one in the hole. That's where people are falling short on the essentials of life without the resources that every person has a claim to for a life of dignity, opportunity, health, education, housing. Leave no one in the hole. But at the same time, we must live within the life-supporting systems of this unique and delicately balanced planet. We must respect the systems on which all life depends. So we need to do these two things together: meet the needs of all people within the means of the living planet. That's the guiding principle for the 21st century. How then do we create economies that actually take us there? Because so far they've been taking us away from that. And this means deeply redesigning the dynamics of our economies to become regenerative instead of degenerative, to become distributive instead of divisive. And it means redesigning the institutions of which we're a part so that they can actually be in service to that goal.
So currently, starting from the first cities, Amsterdam, we now find ourselves in a time where over 40 local and regional administrations around the world are implementing the concepts in very different ways, and another 40 or 50 are in early stages of exploration. So from Grenoble in France to Tomelilla in Sweden, from Copenhagen in Denmark to Brussels, from Glasgow and Brecon Beacons National Park to Mexico City and Ipoh in Malaysia. We have quite a different range of places that are working with donut economics.
What we've learned from places that we've seen that have got started, they've done it by getting started. They've started where the energy is, whether it's a procurement officer who can see the chance to purchase locally, whether it is with the mayor who wants to create a new vision through a citizens' assembly of what is this city that we want to become, whether it's through connecting with the university, with anchor institutions. Get started wherever you are, wherever there's already energy, because that will help to reveal and connect with others who also want to bring about that transformation.
For the last few decades, business has focused on sustainability, and what that's translated into is to try to reduce the harms that they do to society and the living world. Well, now a new idea is emerging, one where we actively try to create benefits, both for society and for our local ecologies, global ecologies. That means that the business world is starting to step up. We're starting to see new ideas around actively creating positive impacts rather than just reducing the negative impacts of the past.
Donut economics sets out a vision of transforming the way we live to become regenerative and distributive by design, so we belong again on this planet and everyone can thrive. Community wealth building is a profoundly practical, powerful and ambitious tool for doing that in a place. Recognizing all the assets that we already have here and the power of spend and how we can turn that into the future that we want to bring about. So I see them as incredibly aligned, Some people arrive through donut economics and realize that community wealth building can be a very powerful way of doing it. Others start with community wealth building and see that it's one way of contributing to a bigger vision of transformation. They are working together, in my mind, really powerfully.
Community wealth building is how we can build a more democratic shared economy. So it looks at various levers to make sure that the wealth that we produce actually ripples into communities, but also there's various forms of ownership which people can benefit from. So it's supporting things like progressive procurement, alternative banking, worker ownership, insourcing, what we do with land and assets in communities, and making sure that our economy works for everyone, really.
The reason Southampton is implementing community wealth building is that the economy is not working for everyone. Too many people are struggling, and we cannot wait for outside investment or government handouts. What we need is to try and improve things ourselves, and this is about spreading and redistributing, frankly, the wealth that's made in this economy and getting more people to have opportunities for all. There's a lot of work ahead to embed all of this in both the council policies, in other organisations' policies, but we need all to work together. This has to be a collective effort, and I really hope that we can transform the city and the region over the next generation.
So we originally, as a council, declared a climate emergency in 2019. And as a result of that, there was the desire to make sure that we looked at all our decisions, both through environmental and social lenses, and our leaders and kind of us as policy officers kind of looked at how we might be able to do that. And donut economics was an area that our chief executive and then leader were really keen on. So we developed the decision wheel, developed the tool during 2020 in-house with our colleagues, and produced kind of what was initially a minimal viable product that we then kind of started adding to and creating something where you could do everything in the one tool. And we then started to embed it across the organization through the creation of a steering group, kind of getting key colleagues who we knew, how would you embed it in your area? What are the first things you might be able to use in your area, the wheel for? And as a result, by 2021, we had a process that worked so well that it was embedded across the council, and all kind of previous processes were put to bed, as it were. And since then, we've been developing it, getting feedback from colleagues. How does it work in practice? How do we encourage people to use it at an earlier stage? How do we encourage people who are new to it to kind of understand what sits behind it? It's not just a pretty picture. There's actually some, really important questions, and they need to take a bit of time, and you need to consider it and not just do it as a tick box exercise at the end. It actually is supposed to be really helpful for you to inform your thinking and to help us meet, deliver on our mission and all our priorities.
This approach has been successful, I would say, in three ways. The first of which is to get officers to think about, and they're making decisions, not just the financial sustainability or viability of a decision, but the environmental, social and equality impacts as well. The second area is it produces a visible tool, a visible graphic that people can see and easily understand. That's both decision makers and members of the public. And the third area is encouraging discussion around those different impacts. So it's not just one, you do the wheel and move on. It starts those discussions off about the wider impacts of decisions.
I think definitely more councils should be using this approach. For us, donut economics was, as you say, just like, well, this is great. Why wouldn't everyone be using this and using this approach in order to improve the situation for their residents? And we all want to make sure that Cornwall is a thriving, sustainable place that everyone can feel supported and safe. And this is a way of us doing that, and a brilliant place to grow up in.
Well, I think the main discussions was around how we can really transform Southampton and actually bring together a lot of what Southampton already believes in, put it out there so that people can engage. And the real issues are around climate change, around how we address that within a city the size and the scale of Southampton. And I recognise that we've got to bring businesses along to really make the difference. Unless businesses are doing their piece, no amount of work from local authorities and campaigners and individuals, us as individual citizens, can really make the difference. We need to ensure that the businesses are pulling their weight. Well, there's no doubt we have a lot of money spent in Southampton. Not much of it, it must be said, is transformative in terms of the local community. So we need to do more. And the best way to do that is to ensure that local businesses and that people who live and work locally really benefit from all of the spend, the procurement, the supply chains, which really support this wonderful city. The strength of really working locally and engaging the local, what one might call Southampton pound, making sure that the spend stays within the city, it doesn't preclude international corporations investing in this city. Quite the opposite. It encourages it because you have healthy and effective and very, very creative local supply chains. And you have a large growing number of those. So it's a win-win. It's a win for the local economy and it's a win internationally. So rather than just seeking international inward investment into a city, it actually helps it to retain, and it's a good reason why businesses would invest in Southampton.
If you're a business, then you need to be prepared for the big changes coming to our economy. That means you're going to need to change probably what you do, but also the deep design of what you are. Now, that is an uncomfortable journey. That is a journey that starts to ask new questions and difficult questions about your relationship with finance, your relationship with the broader economy. But it's something we can't avoid. The change and the transformations are already beginning to happen in our economy. And if you're a business leader, you want to be ahead of these transformations. You want to help shape it. You want to help drive it forward rather than be pulled kicking and screaming into these changes too late.
So when donut economics vision gets put into practice locally, community wealth building is an incredibly powerful approach to doing this. And at the heart of that is recognizing that every place has institutions that are anchored there: a hospital, a school, the council itself, a university, long-standing organizations, banks. How can they use their spending power and their purchasing power to build a rich local web that is resilient and rebuilding local social and ecological value? So anchor institutions have a phenomenal ability to play that role. I think procurement officers have an incredible opportunity to write contracts, break them down into smaller parts, so that they can actually be taken up by the communities that are surrounding your home, in the streets that you live, building that rich web of local interdependence that creates a resilience, instead of having huge contracts that take money out of the community, paying tax who knows where if where. That does not build wealth. So procurement can be such a rich intervention point for creating local wealth. And of course, it requires also creating local cooperatives, socially owned enterprises, enabling those small and medium enterprises so that they can thrive and have the opportunity to be part of that local procurement web.
I would say if I was running a business in Southampton, I would say this is the future. There is no doubt that community funds, community action, working locally, local supply chains, this is where the future of successful business is, also within a sustainable framework. If I was building my business strategy today, I would be shaping it around those values. And I know that they are. And this is why I'm sure that just by opening the door and inviting them to participate, we are going to have a lot of businesses coming forward.